Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. My name is Wes Dove, and I've got the distinct honor and privilege today to chat with a great friend, Scott Glover. Scott, I'm going to let you give your official title, talk through some of the different scenarios and so on, but I'm going to talk about our friendship. So I've known Scott for at least, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years, maybe as much as a decade, but it's been an ongoing, growing friendship that's turned into a great business relationship too. Scott takes amazing care of all of our home and our auto and our business insurance needs and so on through Blue Ridge Insurance Service. And even before that, it was a fantastic friendship. It was never any pressure. It just built and built. And when we had a need, Scott jumped in, and he's been amazing. He's been a great referral source. If we have someone that says, hey, what do you know about this? Or we've got this situation, Scott's your guy. He's been wonderful to take care of us and so many of our friends and family. So Scott, how about you give a brief overview of your professional background, because the insurance world is not all of it. And we've got some common threads there, but talk about a little bit of what you do in the industry and just how you serve the customers, community, the clients that you interact with.
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, Wes. Yeah. Just to piggyback on that, Wes has been a good friend. It has been, I think, 7, 8 years now that we've known each other and supported each other through our endeavors and growth. And I do appreciate all that Wes has done for me and Cindy also. But just a little background on me. I have been here at Blue Ridge for just over 7 years. I'm currently the vice president of the P&C department. And prior to that, just some of the leadership background I've had, I've been with Walmart Distribution as an operations manager there. I was there 9 years, and then prior to that, I was a manager at R. Donnelly over the binder department there for 15 years. Some leadership background, brought that into the insurance industry, not only support and help the clients that come through the door, but also be a leader and help direct the team here at Blue Ridge Insurance.
Now, when we had a conversation like this, maybe a year or so ago, we realized that we had a very, very good mutual friend, and you had a much closer relationship with him than I do, but I was just thrilled to hear it. I actually reached out to him after that conversation and say, oh my goodness, Devin, I had this call with the podcast interview with Scott. He mentioned all you did for him, and he was just ecstatic to hear that years later and so on. It's kind of neat to see how we didn't know one another until 7 or 8 years ago, but our paths were so parallel. We have so many mutual contacts in common. And it's just neat to see how our journeys, our paths continue to go in similar directions. So thanks for sharing each of those. Scott, you talked about management role in book printing. You talked about management role in Walmart distribution. And now what seems like a very, very different role with serving customers, clients, community through what you do on the P&C side and insurance. All of those, though, are leadership, whether it's direct reports or it's with the folks that count on you for that service. Talk a little bit about the idea, and this really ties back to my 2025 book, Leading with Clear Purpose, what that thing was, that purpose that drove you to say, hey, I'll accept that responsibility, because some days it's a whole lot easier to just do for ourselves than to take responsibility for taking care of other people.
It is. And I think I learned that through the mentorships. And like you mentioned, Devin, coming up through R. Donnelly and different things, just having a mentor to guide and direct. You learn that it ain't always all about the money. And that was one of the things in the Leading at the Clear Purpose is it's more, yes, that comes money, but it's more or less how do you purpose matters. How do you get your team to understand the purpose and where the direction we're going and have them behind you that way. And that is just a lot of that's through integrity you have, the relationship you have with them, the rapport, and just being there for them. Make sure you understand that all of our goals are aligning in the right direction and they're behind you with full 100% support.
What was it specifically for you that you said, yeah, I'm willing to do that for the team because they count on, they need somebody that does that for them? What drove you to be willing to take that responsibility?
I have seen that in my prior experience where I've been down the road where you haven't had the best manager, the different type of leadership skills. And I've learned that sometimes it ain't always an iron fist that leads the ship in the right direction. You need to have the rapport and the support of your team rather than a hard directive. So that leadership's more than just order. It's a conversation and an understanding between you and your team on how to make this the best for everyone involved.
Yeah, 100%. That iron fist can get results for sure, but those results stop when that fist is no longer within reach. When the fist is gone, the results go too. Talk about a little bit with that purpose, your background as a foundation. Share a little bit about what you do professionally, who you serve, what that looks like, how you work specifically to serve your clients. I know this very firsthand, but I'd love for you to detail, here's what I'm looking at, here's the impact I want to make with the individuals, with the businesses that I add value to.
And it's relationships. You have to have communication, know your client, and talk with them. It's not always about the price or what's best for the client, the person you're dealing with. And like I said, I've had to walk away. I just being honest with them and saying, "Hey, you're with something really good, and you need to stay where you're at," or give them an insight of where it might be able to help them out. It's just being honest with them and being there for them so they can rely on you to make sure you have their back and they know that you got their back.
Yeah, I love that you said relationship because I've watched that in the years that we've met. In so many cases, I'm about halfway between Broadway and Harrisonburg. If we're catching up for lunch, we're just as often catching up in Broadway because there's several clients there, but a couple specifically that you try to catch up with and schedule lunches around. And that's near and dear to me because my mother worked for those particular clients for a long time and they were really good to her. So they've got a special place in my heart. And I just love how you make sure that you've built time in for those relationships. And it's not just about the money. It's about how can you serve? How can you add value? And that's been one of the things I've always appreciated about you.
Right. I think definitely here at the local community, that's even more important. Just to have somebody you can call and talk to if you have questions. Now it's getting to be some larger agency goes to call service. You don't talk to the person you're dealing with. And I think that means a lot to have someone here you can pick up the phone and talk to rather than recording where you have to start your story all over.
Oh, yeah. My dad's told me for about 45 years, I'll be 50 in about a week. And he said, you get more patient as you get older. And so far, I've just gotten older. So telling that story over and over wears thin on the little bit of patience I've got. Now, you mentioned relationships. I'm going to ask, call out one specific value that's critical to you personally and how you work to build that in daily for the clients, the community, the people that you interact with, what they can count on experience with Scott Glover.
I've said integrity. That's my core goal. I just want to make sure I'm being honest with you, giving you the insight. I'm same with the employees that work for me. I'm going to be open and honest with them on feedback with their performance or what they need. Is just not going to beat around the bush or give you a side story. It's going to be integrity. I'm going to talk to you in a professional manner and let you know. That's my number one.
Yeah, I'm asking the values question. I'm going to build on that a little bit and how it related and how you joined Blue Ridge Insurance Service and so on. But to give it a little bit more frame, about 5 years ago now, I had the opportunity, and I think you've met Craig, at least in passing, met a couple named Craig and Kim Johnson, and they were in the process of doing the due diligence to acquire a locally held company. Craig was in a similar industry to what you're in, and he was leading a gigantic company, but he based all that on values. And when he was looking to buy this small family-owned business for him, his wife, his son and daughter-in-law, and daughter to now run that business, he said, here's our 5 values, and I want to make sure that it's just woven into every aspect of what we do here. If we're going to move forward with this transaction, if we're going to build a team, this is what we're going to do. And I've watched it. It's been remarkable to see, and it really led to me writing the Values Advantage book and now building the implementation guide and all the different tools we're doing around it. I've seen those values be critical. Now, you've had a great run. You've made just a tremendous impact with what you're doing with Blue Ridge Insurance Service and so on. How did your personal values align with what you saw that you would be able to do with Blue Ridge Insurance Service? What attracted you and what's kept you there?
I think they had the top 3 values that I have. It's faith, family, and then your career. So it's a very family oriented team that we have here, and they understand the family is a priority, and we make everything we can do to make sure you have time with your family, and we step up to make sure that you are able to do that. If you need to go, the other people got your back. So then the career piece comes after that. So I think that really lines with my values and what I look to. And that's one of the reasons why I thought it was a good fit to take over the vice president of the P&C department, just to keep those values in line, because that's all I've stood for in my prior jobs also.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I've got a friend that several months ago told me, it seems like you and Cindy really build good friendships with the folks that you do work with long term. And I told him, well, we're working with folks that have like values. The words might not be the same, but how they exemplify what's meaningful to them is the same. And when that's in place, it's easy to have good friendships. And I went
Exactly.
on to tell him, hey, if we don't have the same values in place, I'm not sure I want to work with them, let alone be their friend. And so it's carried over. And that's really what you said there. Even if the faith, family, career didn't necessarily match word for word, because you mentioned integrity, the meaning behind it, the way it translates over into action, I've absolutely seen those things be what you demonstrate for the people, me as a client, and
Thank
what
you.
you do. So it's pretty powerful to watch. Thank you for that. Now, you're also involved in a lot of different community things. One of the things that I want to make sure that we touch on is your role as currently the board chair for New Creation. And they're our community partner for the upcoming 2026 Leadership Legacy Experience. We're helping them launch a campaign called the Freedom Legacy Partner Initiative. Not a high ticket item, but it's something that's really geared at helping create visibility in different sectors of the community than they typically have relationships in. And we're donating 5% of all of our ticket revenue to New Creation through the
Thank
project.
you. Yes.
We're excited about it. It's been so fun to work with Sabrina and the team. She and I had a conversation like this not so long ago. Talk about something that you've been involved with, some type of community initiative that you've been able to be a part of, even if it's New Creation or whatever, where living those values has allowed you to see a tremendous impact in the people being served.
Yes, and just back to the New Creation, Sabrina does a wonderful job of this, that she started this for human trafficking. I've been a supporter of that long before I was on the board or became the chair. That was always my goal, was to be on the board, and then opportunity to have a chair, and it all came to fruition for me. It's quite an honor to help drive the support of that organization, what they're trying to do through awareness, through the new building that we're building out there for the warehouse, coffee shop that's coming, that's going along very well, and we're happy to see that come. And just joining that team and supporting them, they had their values in line a lot with mine: integrity, their authenticity that they were doing. So that's one of the biggest goals that I've had, is to how can I support them better, get their name out in the community, interact with other leaders, clients, just to get the word out there, just to make them understand what they do and their vision as a nonprofit. That was one of my biggest things I've done here in the past year, is just grow that any way I can throughout our community and organization.
Let me poke a little bit. You mentioned the building and the warehouse and the coffee
Mhm.
shop. Talk about the impact that will make. I mean, they've done some
Yeah.
amazing things globally. They've done a lot of awareness, and that was one of the things that attracted me and Cindy to be able to be involved however we could. But talk about what that's going to do locally for survivors that are coming
Right.
through, opportunities, so forth.
It definitely open. It could be job opportunities for survivors coming out, because that's one of the toughest things. And when you get somebody that's coming out of the human trafficking, is finding work for them, and opportunities for them to start afresh without going back into the field they have to go back into human trafficking to make a living out of their life. So this is a great opportunity to give opportunities for them, show them there is another way besides what they've been held hostage to. Very passionate about what this will do, not only for our organization, but for those survivors out there.
We're so excited to see it. It's been a bit disruptive because there's almost no parking at the
Yeah,
shop at this point. But the reality is, to get to that next level, there's always going to be some disruption in any aspect of our life.
for sure. Yeah, it always was tight out there anyway, but now it's even tighter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Cindy and I've really enjoyed the interaction. Last year, Sabrina was able to serve on one of our executive panels at our 2025
Mhm.
Leadership Legacy event, talking about purpose and what drove her. And that really opened the door. We saw that, hey, this gave her visibility and New Creation visibility in front of a whole different sector, because a lot of their support has been not exclusively, but heavily faith based. And even there, I met a fellow in the gym not long ago, Scott, that he was on the way to an African country. I don't remember which one, through his church, where they've sponsored and adopted folks who have been human trafficked, and really helping with that. And I said, so are you familiar with New Creation? He said, nope, I've never heard of it. And I said, oh my goodness. And here's our opportunity to help connect those dots.
Back there's yes.
And I believe as we give her that platform and new creation, that community partner platform, the $144 or the $12 a month that is a Freedom Legacy partner that we've created with this is insignificant to certainly to a company, but even to an individual. But the scale that it can do and the awareness that it can bring, I think, can be very significant over time. So I appreciate your role in helping us do that and just the relationship we have with them. So
I agree. I think the awareness from that's going to be way bigger than anything else we get out of this. I think that's the huge piece of this pie.
Yeah, we're excited to be able to contribute 5% of the ticket sale revenue,
Yeah.
that top line before any, but it's not out of profit, it's out of total revenue from ticket
Right.
sales. So hopefully we actually make money because that's why we're in business. I like being a capitalist and sleeping inside, but the reality is we've committed to that. But more importantly, that awareness is what we're really after there.
Yeah,
So
I do appreciate your partnership with us on that, because that does make a huge difference in impact more than you know.
we're thrilled to do it. So talk to me. We've talked a lot about core values, yours personally. One of the things that Cindy and I've seen in our own careers and now with what we do in our business, we've seen that for anybody to invest the time, the energy, the money into their own individual leadership growth, there has to be something back. And if it's just for the title or the position or the authority, that investment's not going to be there. How have your core values really spurred you to make sure that you're constantly sharpening the saw and making sure that you're the best you can be for the team you lead, for the individuals you serve, for the businesses you serve?
Well, first of all, Wes, you've been a great support in that through some of the leadership training classes I've had with you and your online training that you put out there. That's been a big piece of it to help me sharpen that tool. Also, just mentorship through with Karen on some things that she has coming in to talk through and discuss and learn from her on those too. I think mentorship's always going to be important, and no matter where you go, on top of the training, the classes, just to have someone there to help you sharpen your skills and understand what they've been through, especially if they've had prior and more experience in the role you have to beat it back and forth with. That's been a couple of key pieces that's helped me stay on top and keep on learning different ways to develop my leadership skills with the team.
Now, I've loved watching how you've done it, and the focus has always been on how can you be better for the people that count on you. I appreciate what you do for us, and I've watched what you do for the team around you. Respect and admire it, sir.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You've heard me talk about a lot over the last year, this idea of what I shared earlier about watching Craig and Kim Johnson and their family really implement the idea of values into an organization. Not that it was new, but it was the first time I'd seen it so intentional. And we've since seen it in multiple different organizations. What we're doing for the 2026 Leadership Legacy Experience that Sabrina is a part of, her role specifically on that first panel after Cindy and I do the opening keynote, her role is to talk about here's how we at New Creation identified the core values we're going to base every decision on. And she's got 3 other folks on that panel with her. And the rest of the day really maps out the framework for applying that idea of the values advantage. Based on what you know, tell me a little bit about what you think an organization can really stand to benefit if they take that in and really apply it in the way they do business.
Thing I'm really looking forward to in this values advantage is the building of the stronger values piece of it. How do you build a top performing team that has those cultures built within the organization? So that's going to be one of the key, just to continue to build that strong values, to continue to build a top performing, top tier team and attract top tier staff. If you grow and perform more than what you expect.
Yeah. And it's so fun. I just finished up some of the slide deck right before I jumped on here of what Cindy's going to be doing with an interview with Craig Johnson. And not only has the Waynesboro Landscape and Garden Center team seen remarkable growth, both personally, professionally, revenue wise, and so on. He's going to share, and he did it in the foreword to the book. He shared how in less than or right at a decade, he was the CEO, chairman of the board of a large insurance and financial services company. They doubled their revenue. They tripled their profitability, and their surveys were consistently saying that 98% of their team saw themselves staying with the company for the next 5 years. And that's any one of those is significant. All of them together is just wow.
Wow, that is amazing.
And none of that was just by accident. All of it was very intentional. And how do we embed these values? How do we live these values? How do we make sure everybody on the team understands what those values look like? So that's a piece of what we're working to put out there. And Cindy and I will unveil at that point what we're going to call the Values Advantage Framework Implementation Guide. That's a very specific strategic model to break that all down into a 12-month process for even a company that has 0 values listed or identified. It's not hard, but it takes intentionality. So now I'm going to change gears. I'm going to ask the final scripted question, but I'm also
Okay.
going to tee up an unscripted question that I enjoy doing, and I really like the spontaneous responses from that. So I didn't tell you this in advance. The last scripted question is, what advice would you share with somebody that's young and looking to grow their career and really take on more leadership responsibility? Not maybe grow into a supervisor, manager, executive role, but I'm stressing the idea of leadership, not just supervision and management.
I think if they're looking to it and interested in doing that, is to talk to their leader, find a mentor that they can follow and lead, that their values kind of line up with something that you believe in also, and they can help give you that direction, information, coaching as you go through and grow in your career. Because I know that was really big for me early in my career when I decided I want to be in leadership back with R. Donnelly, is just getting opportunities to, after I spoke with, like I say, Devin, the leader before there, and just to be invited into the meetings with him so he can show me how to communicate, learn the ins and outs of the business that way, and to hone my skills, I would say, so I'd have the opportunity whenever the time came for me to go into leadership. So I think that's one of the big pieces into that. And just also make sure you stick to your values of integrity and doing what's right for the client, not so much what you feel they want.
Yeah. And there's a book that says, as you sow, so shall you reap. And if you don't stick to those values, at some point, it's going to come back and bite you. It is what it is. Now, you've mentioned Devin a couple of times. You've mentioned R.R. Donnelly. I'll throw in real quick. One of the folks on the second panel, it was an R.R. Donnelly executive for a number of years. He's currently the CEO of a company called BR Printers. His name's Jorge Velasco. And I met him through Devin about 5 years ago. So it's neat to see how the relationships really do intertwine. How we get to it. And I'll go back to, you mentioned mentorship. I've got a book coming out in early 27 that's going to be called Leveraging Leadership Growth, Strength Through Great Professional Relationships. And the premise of that book is really, Wes is a not so smart hillbilly. I'm not very good at many things, but I've been blessed over the last 30 years with some absolutely phenomenal mentors that slapped me in the head when I needed it and took me by the hand when I needed it. And it's helped me do a lot of things that I never would have otherwise. So that mentorship thing's really near and dear to me. Now, I'm going to tee this last question up, and then I'll talk about what's in the show notes so you have a little bit of time to think through it. So the question is, what have I not asked you in this conversation that you want to make sure gets out there, that you really want to hone in on, that's really, really meaningful to you? Now, you think about that. I'll talk in the show notes wherever you're accessing this. If you're live, catching the video in our Leading at the Next Level community, you get to watch my crazy facial expressions. You get to see me talking with my hands and all this other stuff. If it's on the podcast, wherever, in any of the show notes, you're going to see a link to the Blue Ridge Insurance Inc.com website. You're going to see a link directly to the part of that page where you can learn to know Scott Glover. And I would say do that, because Scott has been amazing for me and Cindy. You're going to see the link to the Blue Ridge Insurance Services Facebook page. You're also going to see an opportunity to check out the New Creation website and get to meet their team as well as the board, see where Scott serves as a board chair for them. So with all those things in the show notes, you'll probably see some stuff about the Values Advantage book and or the Leadership Legacy Experience. If you're in the digital game plan product for the event, you get to see a whole lot more stuff. And I'm not even going to talk about that anymore, because if you're in it, you already know what it is. And if you're not in it, you need to get in it. Scott, answer that final question, and then we'll bring it to a close.
So I think it goes back to, you look at the younger staff that coming in, they're looking at the money. You got to try to get them to understand the value. So that's been it's a big piece out there that I try to make you understand the values. The money will come down the line. That's going to be the hardest piece coming up. If you're talking about if I'm answering your question right, Wes, what you ask is, I want to drive the value piece out there to the staff to make sure they understand that, and then understand that if that goes, the compensation goes after with that also.
I absolutely love that. In the conversation with Craig Johnson in through 21 and into early 22, when we were writing his handbook and really refining what he said, here's what our 5 values are. And we toyed with the idea of listing profitability as one of their core values, because to really take care of people, to sustain a business long term, it's got to be a profitable business. We're not the government. We can't steal from everybody out there and just continue to do it and act like it's a good thing. We've got to do that. But we ultimately decided we're not going to list profitability as a value, because if we follow those other values, profitability will come. And in their case, it has. And Scott, in every other scenario that I can list off the top of my head, or even thinking through in depth, the companies that live out their values are long-term profitable. There are companies that can be profitable in the short term by not doing it. We've all seen them. But eventually that's going to crumble.
Exactly.
Scott, thanks for taking the time to do this. I genuinely appreciate our friendship. Every interaction that we get to have is fun. I've just enjoyed building the friendship over the last several years and look forward to continuing it. Appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you, Wes. I appreciate your friendship and what you do and the leadership skills you are able to give us to help sharpen our tools.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, if you're catching this, wherever it's at, podcast, community, digital product, and you've got a need for continuing education credits, specifically in the HR space, like the Society for Human Resource Management, Human Resource Certification Institute, or others, but those specifically, send us an email at admin@dove-development.net, and I'm happy to hook you up with a 7-day trial access to our full Leading at the Next Level program. It's in monthly increments, one of which, the next level access tier, I think that lists at $49 a month, has right at 200 hours as we have this conversation of lessons that are all approved for recertification credits through both entities. And we've got a whole bunch of other resources in there as well. But if in addition to that 7-day trial, we'll give you some type of discount code for 25% discount off the first year, the monthly access point, to really dive in, get your credits, but more importantly, pull leadership lessons that you can put in place and make a tangible difference, both financially and in your leadership culture for the organizations you lead. Thanks for being part of this. Scott, thanks again for taking the time. We look forward to seeing you soon. And God bless.